Welcome back, and thank you for joining A Shark's Perspective, the podcast with subject matter experts in marketing. You know, blockchain is still theoretical, yet it's a tide that you can see coming upon the marketing industry. I mean, come on. It even received an investment from Mr. Wonderful on an episode on season 10 of Shark Tank. But how will it affect your lead gen efforts once this all comes to fruition? John Hargrave is a blockchain subject matter expert, the CEO of Media Shower, the publisher of Bitcoin Market Journal, and the author of Blockchain for Everyone. And on this episode, we'll discuss the preparation with blockchain in marketing, advertising, and customer acquisition, and how a monumental moment in history may just be upon us. So let's tune in to a blockchain subject matter expert with a subject matter shark on this episode of A Shark's Perspective. John, thank you so much for being on A Shark's Perspective today. If you would tell us a little bit about your background and your career to date.
Sure, thanks for having me. I'm John Hargrave. I am the CEO of Media Shower. We're a blockchain media company, and we publish a blockchain investor publication called Bitcoin Market Journal, bitcoinmarketjournal.com, and we're trusted by 100,000 blockchain investors monthly to teach them how to make smart blockchain investments. I started my career during the dot-com days. Back in the mid-90s, I started working for a media company called Ziff Davis. We published computer magazines for the younger folks.
Yeah, I remember
magazines.
that, sadly.
Yeah, the computer magazines.
I remember Ziff Davis and those kind of magazines.
Yeah. For the younger folks, magazines are these stacks of colored paper that were sold in these things called bookstores. And it was the most exciting time to be alive because it was the dot-com revolution. We were building a dot-com. We built the computing site ZDNet and CNET, still around today. And we were covering the technology revolution as a technology company. So it was so much energy and excitement and passion during that time. And I never thought I'd be lucky enough to see it a second time in my career. But if anything, I think this time, the blockchain revolution, it's even better. I think there's more talent, there's more energy, there's more money coming into this revolution than there ever was during the dot-com days.
In particular about blockchain, I guess what made you look at it early and think this is where you're going to get in as a practice? I mean, for a lot of people, I think most people have some understanding. I mean, you can't turn around and not see one of those, magazines with colored paper talking about blockchain today. But what was it that, not that long ago, relatively speaking, got you in and said, this is where I've got to go with my career?
Well, the first was the explosive growth of Bitcoin. So I was lucky enough to invest in Bitcoin back when it was about $125 per Bitcoin. And then at the end of last year, it was $20,000 per Bitcoin. So when in your life will you ever make an investment that increases that much?
Exactly.
So that was a powerful signal to me that there was something really revolutionary about this technology. So Bitcoin, if you're not familiar with it, is a digital currency and it's built on blockchain technology. Some people confuse the two, but the way I describe it is blockchain is the underlying technology upon which Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies are built, in the same way that the internet is an underlying technology upon which websites are built. So you think of the internet as a platform, just like blockchain is a platform. The internet supports websites, Google, Amazon, Uber, and blockchain supports decentralized applications such as Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, which we call altcoins. So there's such promise and such potential in these to transform not just the economy, but the way we do business at every facet of human life. And that to me is what makes it so exciting.
So what are the underlying forces then that are really sort of pushing blockchain into significance within marketing?
Blockchain is all about decentralization. If you think about the greatest human institutions that we've built to date, our governments, our companies, even our religions, they're really centralized institutions. You think about the White House, or you think about Apple headquarters. Those are centralized headquarters of centralized institutions. But blockchain is all about decentralization. The best example of decentralization is the internet, right? Nobody owns the internet. There is no internet company. Mark Zuckerberg can't go buy the internet. So the internet is totally decentralized, which means it's spread out across everybody. Nobody really owns it. And yet, in a sense, we all kind of own the internet, right? We all own it. It's kind of a public good in that way. And blockchain is taking all of these centralized institutions and decentralizing it. So Bitcoin is an example of a digital money, a digital currency that's decentralized. That means nobody owns it, no government issues it. That's the first way that you can kind of understand it. But blockchain is gradually going to decentralize all of these other centralized institutions. I think it's going to dismantle governments. It's going to change the nature of corporations and so forth. And that has profound implications for marketers, because marketers are here to help market a product and service of a good for a centralized corporation. And that's going to change radically.
So how is blockchain affecting the world of customer acquisition?
Well, it's not yet, but I have an idea of how that will play out. And I think that in these decentralized systems that blockchain makes possible, you can think of them almost like a cloud-based database. It's almost like a giant Google sheet that everybody is storing together in the cloud. And I think when you look at lead generation, for example, one of the primary jobs of the modern marketer, those databases of leads, I think, are going to be held as these enormous shared blockchains. In other words, they're going to be shared as kind of large cloud databases, decentralized. I don't think that any specific company is going to own those leads, but rather they will be large pools of leads that companies can build services onto, that we can all kind of plug into. And that's radical. That's radical. That means that your leads will not necessarily be your own. They will not be the property of your company anymore, but they'll rather be more like shared databases that you can plug into and use to grow your business.
So do you think that the person whose lead is being acquired, do they have any more control over their, lead gen destiny? I mean, if it's decentralized from a buyer's perspective, I get that part. But does the customer itself have any more control because of this decentralized nature?
Well, I hope so. I hope so. So the promise and the potential of blockchain is that we will have more control over our personal data. So let's take, for example, a company like Equifax. So Equifax goes and mines all of our personal data without our consent, without our permission, aggregates that data, sells it, and then loses it to hackers, like in the great Equifax data breach. Well, that's immoral. That is unethical. It's not illegal, unfortunately. It should be, but it's wrong. It's wrong. It's wrong to take people's personal information without their consent, to aggregate that and sell it. And lead gen services in that sense are guilty of the same crime. It's not a crime technically, but it should be. It should be. Because our privacy, our identity, it's a right. A privacy is a fundamental human right. And we're going to start to understand that, I think, over the next generation. So because privacy is a human right, we have the companies should have to ask us. We should have to get our explicit permission in order to use that data. Now, if we opt in, that's fine. but the company should pay us, right? Like a company should pay you to use your personal data. And as long as that's happening, that's fine. So blockchain makes it possible for us to opt in and then be paid in the form of these altcoins, these cryptocurrencies, sometimes called tokens. But essentially, imagine that as a little unit of money or a little unit of value that a company could pay you in order for you to opt in. And that's the way it should work. That is the way it should work. These giant centralized companies, everyone from Equifax to Facebook, should not be able to aggregate our data and resell that to advertisers without paying us for the privilege.
So who are you seeing out there who are the advertisers out there right now, the companies out there who are leveraging this technology well from a marketing standpoint?
Well, it's still early days with blockchain. I like to use the analogy of like 1995 and the internet. And back then it was kind of geeky and it was hard to use. It was hard to even explain to people what it was, why you needed the internet. And then 5 years later, by the year 2000, it was all anybody could talk about. It was the hottest thing on Wall Street were .coms. That happened in the space of 5 years. But it happened because, first of all, we built better platforms, so it got easier to develop websites. We built better user interfaces. You had like Netscape and Internet Explorer. We built better on-ramps like CompuServe, which was this giant like paid online service suddenly opened up to the internet. And then we got killer apps. And then we got like real reasons that people needed to use it, like email, for example. And then people started to get it. And all of a sudden it was like you couldn't live without the internet. I think it's happening even faster with blockchain. I think we're seeing like in the next 2 years, we'll probably accelerate what we saw in 5 before. So because of that, a lot of these tools, a lot of these things that we're envisioning have not been built yet, but there are many, many entrepreneurs and founders who are starting these projects right now. And marketing is certainly an important part of those early projects because these are all like technology launches. Like they have to get people on their blockchains. And because of that, one of the biggest opportunities for marketers right now is helping these new blockchain entrepreneurs, this new generation of blockchain enthusiasts to actually market their blockchains. Because they're not marketers, they're geeks, they're technologists. They do not understand marketing at all. And that's a huge opportunity for us to help. So that's what we spend a lot of our time doing as well as a blockchain media company, is just educating the blockchain community on how it works.
So then if I'm a general user at this point, or a general person who hears your speech and doesn't want to just sell my information for free, where do I go about starting to take a little more of a hold on that? And how do I set myself up for success going forward as an individual?
Well, I think the first thing is just get educated. So learn all you can about the space. I have a new book coming out called Blockchain for Everyone. And my mission is I think of myself as kind of a servant of knowledge. And this book is really meant to explain blockchain to a lay audience. It's a technical book for non-technical people and trying to make it accessible and fun. And a lot of the blockchain discussion out there gets kind of mired in the technical details. But the more you can educate yourself about this space, I think the more intellectually fascinating you'll find it. But also you'll start seeing all of these opportunities to build your own business and grow within this space.
So who are you seeing out there that is starting to jump into that knowledge and trying to narrow that knowledge gap more quickly? Is it the advertisers or other agencies that you come across?
I think it's actually a huge network of founders and entrepreneurs. And again, think about the early days of the web. Like the big corporations were not there yet. Like they really didn't get it. It was a bunch of small, independent, kind of local hobbyists and enthusiasts, and then founders and entrepreneurs that created that initial network of the web. Those were the pioneers. Those were the folks that experimented a lot with a website. And then you got some kind of early adopters. I remember Wired magazine was one that like really jumped on the web first, and actually I think invented the banner ad, which we won't hold it against them because they they are innovative. And they really started to try to figure out how does this web thing work and how can we integrate that with our publishing business. And then slowly the rest of the corporate America came on board. So that's what we're going to see. Right now it's a lot of founders, a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of startups. We're still building the platforms, as I said, for a lot of this, but eventually we're going to see the big agencies and everybody come on board.
Do you see any particular verticals? And I think obviously there's, people automatically think of banking and that sort of regulated type industry because it's a currency. But are there any other types of verticals who you think that are going to lead the way over the next few years?
Certainly financial services industry. I call blockchain a tidal wave that is going to wash ashore, and the banks and the financial institutions are the coastal towns that are going to be hit first and hardest by that tidal wave. So the largest, the company with the most blockchain patents is Bank of America. Bank of America, followed by all the other major banks. So they know it's coming. They understand the disruption, the fundamental change that's going to wash their industry away if they don't get ahead of it. Here's a very simple example is overseas payments. If you've ever tried to pay somebody overseas, it's called remittance payments. It's slow, it's expensive, it can take like 3 days, super expensive to send an overseas wire transfer. And companies like that, Wells Fargo, Western Union, they're doomed. They're doomed because blockchain already makes it instant to send a currency like Bitcoin using an app, using like the Coinbase app. It's instant. And it's lower fees. It's so much easier. So it's just like email completely disrupted paper mail. We still use paper mail. You send, I don't know, sympathy cards, I guess, through the mail, bills. But everybody uses email now. That's what's happening. Everybody's going to use blockchain to send and receive money and value. And they know it. So they're trying to prepare for that. But how it's going to actually play out, that's the fun part.
So I had the pleasure of hearing you speak at a conference, and I saw a lot of eyes, open up and start to understand a lot more. But I know you speak on a lot of podcasts and conferences and things like that. I'm just kind of curious, what do you get out of doing that? What's the pleasure and appeal that you find out of speaking?
Well, I really think of myself as a servant of knowledge, and I'm trying to educate about blockchain and about how we can use it. We kind of have a fundamental moment here in human history. It really is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to change a lot of the problematic systems and structures that we've built. So what I'm trying to do is paint the vision of a future with blockchain that is more equal, that is more fair, that's easier, more streamlined, and that improves the human race. And it really does have the opportunity to disrupt and transform a lot of the unfair institutions that we've built. I just mentioned Equifax is one, but another one is the way that we raise money in the stock market. We have these things called initial public offerings when a company goes public. And the way those are built is inherently unfair because there's usually a 1% that get in early. They're kind of the investment banks. And then the 99%, the rest of us, when it actually goes public, they sell out their stock and make a profit. So we don't all invest at the same time. We're not able to by law. Well, blockchain, we've invented this thing called the initial coin offering, or ICO, as opposed to an IPO. And with an initial coin offering, you can launch a blockchain project and everybody can invest, in theory, at the same time and receive these tokens, these blockchain-based tokens, which are, again, kind of like a share of stock in a company. And you can trade these tokens on these exchanges right now, just like you trade a share of stock. And while there are a lot of problems with these, there's a lot of regulatory uncertainty. The spirit is right. The idea is right. We should all be able to invest at the same time. That is one of the many messages that I try to convey in my talks around the world.
It's an opportunity to learn. And I think anybody who doesn't spend a lot of time learning about blockchain at this point, there's only going to be so long that you can just be doe-eyed and put your head in the sand. It's really a major disruptor that is just like on a big banner that we know is coming. It's a big sign, and people need to learn as much as they can about it now. So I appreciate your time. Are you now ready, John, for the 5 most important questions you're going to be asked today?
Let's do it.
All right. Boston Celtics question: Larry Bird or Kevin Garnett?
Larry Bird.
Hot tea or iced tea?
Hot tea.
Lobster or crab?
Lobster.
Good choice. I just had a good lobster in Boston not that long ago.
Of course.
Starbucks or Dunkin'?
Pete's.
Good one. And the most important question, biscuits or cornbread?
Well, I'm from Memphis originally, so cornbread.
Ooh. Okay. So, John, thank you so much for being on the show. Where can people find out more about you, follow your learnings and advice, and obviously where can they find the book coming soon?
Yeah, the book is coming to bookstores near you in 2019, Blockchain for Everyone. But in the meantime, you can sign up for our free Blockchain Investor email newsletter at bitcoinmarketjournal.com.
John, thank you so much for appearing on A Shark's Perspective today.
Thanks so much.
So there was my conversation with John Hargrave, a blockchain subject matter expert, the CEO of Media Shower, the publisher of Bitcoin Market Journal, and the author of Blockchain for Everyone. Let's take a look at 3 key takeaways from my conversation with him. First, as a reminder and differentiator, Bitcoin is a digital currency built on blockchain technology. Blockchain is the underlying technology upon which Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies are built, in the same way that the internet is an underlying technology upon which websites are built. Blockchain is all about decentralization. No one owns it, no government owns it. Second, when you look at lead generation in these decentralized systems, like a cloud-based system, those databases of leads will be held as the enormous shared blockchains. No specific company will own them. They'll be pools of leads. Your leads will not necessarily be your own. The promise and the potential is that we will have more control over our own personal data. Should companies get your permission to use your personal data, instead of just giving it away, blockchain makes it possible to opt in and then get paid with some type of token. Third, we have a fundamental moment in human history to change a lot of the problematic systems and structures that we've built. Many blockchainers want to make things more equal, fairer, easier, more streamlined, and try to improve the human race. It's the opportunity to disrupt and transform many of the unfair institutions that we've built, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Got a question? Please feel free to find me on LinkedIn or send me an email to kenneth@asharksperspective.com. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this show regarding another one of the many components that makes up marketing today. It's been my honor, and of course, dilly dilly. Learn as much as you can about blockchain and join us on the next episode of A Shark's Perspective.